It's a very interesting, and some would say scary, time in our market right now.
Absolutely. It is a crisis. It's a crisis of affordability at all levels.
What's all the uncertainty about? Well, in today's episode, we're going to break down exactly what's going on in the market and why that makes a difference in your life. Welcome to another episode of the Will Frederick podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. So what's going on with the market? The cost of money, which is the interest rate, is affecting our purchasing power and behavior right now, mainly with the things we borrow money to buy, like houses and cars. So as a society, we aren't buying those things as much. We're gravitating toward things that we can buy with cash, the money we have on hand, which are mainly consumables. One of the top industry events in the real estate world is the Keller Williams annual conference in Austin called Mega Camp. Every year, I go to Austin to meet with some of the top real estate experts in the world. Founder of Keller Williams, Gary Keller, gives a state of the market address where he examines some of the factors that are driving today's real estate market and the general economy. And today, I'm going to be reviewing some of that information with you. Buckle up. Here we go. Now, to help discuss this effect, I want to talk to you about something called affordability. When it comes to buying a house, affordability is the main concern. Affordability is measured by the amount of mortgage payment, which is just principal and interest, expressed as a percentage of one's monthly income. Here we see the way affordability has fluctuated over the years. That's the yellow line. So the long-term average is this kind of light blue line, and it's about 27% of your monthly income is your principal and interest payment. So if you look back in 1981, when the rates were at record highs like 17%, yeah, you heard that right. 17% was the interest rate. Back then, you were paying almost 50% of your income to your mortgage. Again, that's not including taxes and insurance. That's just principal and interest. So you can see where it started to come down, and in the 90s, it dropped down to 21% in 1998. And we saw it rise through the housing bubble. Remember this time? Up to about 32%. Then it went back down as housing prices came down. Rates came down to, you see it come down to about 17% in 2012. So that's also when we saw rates come down, and they stayed low for about a decade, right in this time frame. Now, as rates started to come back up, here we are in 2023 at 29% affordability. Not really that high, but relative to recent memory, it's uncomfortable, right? A lot of you are feeling it out there. So I'm hoping this slide helps you understand a big part of our problem right now is not that we have high rates. It's that we've had abnormally low rates for the last decade. And by comparison, it feels so high. And you'll hear people say, because of this rate situation, I don't want to be house poor. That really depends a lot on where you are in life as to whether or not that is wise thinking. When you're young and starting out, that might be okay for a while you're building equity to be a little house poor. Affordability is only horrible right now if you look at the last 10 years. The next thing I want to look at, because it's so closely related, is how home prices have changed over the years. Here's one of my favorite slides to show people. Check this out. The green line that you see is the long-term home appreciation trend. Since the beginning of when they started measuring it, the price of a home has increased on average by 4% per year. And that's that kind of light greenish blue line there. You can see it starts down here, and in 02, 03, 04, 5, and 6, where the home price started to pull away from the trend line, right? It's up a little bit. What was going on here? Many of you know this was the real estate housing bubble. The bubble popped in 06 and then dropped through 07, 08, and then stabilized at the bottom in 9, 10, and 11, right in here. Then we saw it pick back up slowly, starting in 12. Then it began a steady march right up, and it was lagging this trend line, right? This is the 4% trend line. Remember that. So I remember in this time, we were all watching it and thought, well, maybe that was the new trend line. So we thought maybe this bubble just messed us up and we just reset the trend. But look at what happens in 2020. From 19 to 20, you see a significant increase. And then what happens in 2021? Another big significant increase. Now, not just catching us up to that trend line, but even overshooting a little bit. And in 2022, again, that momentum keeps carrying the price upwards. Remember what's going on here in the background. We just looked at that rate slide. We're propelled by cheap money and a robust economy. Here we are now in 2023. The prices have begun to drop to where they're only about 7% above that trend line compared to 21% at the height of the bubble in 2006. Just putting some perspective here. So what does this mean? No one knows for sure. We're just making educated guesses from the data. There may be a case to be made for the possibility that we might have just caught up to the trend line and overshot it a little bit, obviously. But what this tells me is a couple of things. We probably won't see a drastic decline in housing prices. Different than the last housing bubble, the fundamentals are very different this time. And if you want more information on that, see my first episode of the podcast. I go into why that's the case. The appreciation will probably settle down for the next couple of years and let that trend line catch up. Really, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, and anybody who tells you they do, I wouldn't trust them. Interesting numbers to think about either way. I will have this slide available to download. There's really so much that this slide tells us. It's very applicable to our unique situation. And it gives you just some perspective to keep in mind the big picture when you're considering your local market. Again, these are national numbers on these slides, what's going on in the economy in general. So if you're considering making a home purchase, you may want to reach out to me and look at what's going on with home prices in the specific area that you're considering, because we have that data too and can give you some wise counsel on your specific situation. That's what we do. We can be an advisory resource to you. So if you'd like me to help you understand what this might mean for your personal situation, don't hesitate to call me. So the next slide we're going to look at is about mortgage rates. So I love this slide because it gives us a little perspective. Now, this yellow line is the historic rate average from 1972 through 2021, so 50 years. The green line is the average of 1990 through 2021, which is 30 years. And do you see why our rate today of 7.5 feels so high? Look what was going on here. What else does the context of this history tell us? Well, to me, it looks like it's not really that bad right now. Is it higher than any of us want? Sure, but not incapacitatingly high. Okay, let's talk about how all this matters for you right now in your life. How does this, or how should this affect the way you think about your buying decisions? We're going to look at a scenario here where you're trying to decide if you're going to buy your dream car versus your dream home. So I'm going to set the stage. You bought a $200,000 home in 2014. You put 20% down and your rate was 4% because that's what it was back then. And you own a truck outright that you bought in 2015. Now your mortgage payment on that house is $1,597.20. And your truck, you have no payment on, it's paid off. So you're trying to decide if you're going to upsize, buy a new home, or buy a dream car. So what you decide to do in this first scenario is that you keep living in your current home and you buy your dream car. And that dream car is a $100,000 2022 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. You finance $90,000 of that. You put 10% down, you finance $90,000 at 8% for 5 years. So your car payment is $1,824.88 a month. Your mortgage payment still at $1,597.20 a month. And of course, you have an interest deduction on your mortgage payment of about $100. That's customary for a home that you've owned that long. So your total debt on a monthly basis is $3,322.08. Let's go back to the beginning of that scenario. And this time we're going to pretend instead of buying a dream car, you bought a dream house. First, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, First Access Mortgage. They're Louisiana's first choice mortgage lender for the last 21 years, and we're excited to be partnered with them. For your first home, a vacation home, or investment property, they're truly your home loan resource. Same situation, your $200,000 home, your rate, your payment's $1,597, your truck's paid off. This time you keep your truck and then you sell your home that you bought in 2014 for $200,000. Now it's worth $400,000, but you sell it and then you buy your dream home for $650,000. Now you use that full equity of $272,000 as a down payment, and you have a 7% rate now. So your rate's obviously much higher. Your car payment, again, coming over here, car payment is nothing, and your mortgage payment is now $3869.01, and your interest deduction, because now you have you started your loan over, you're paying more interest here at the beginning, so your interest deduction is $490 per month, and so that brings your total debt to $3379.01. Now, do y'all remember what the budget home and dream car was? $3322.08 versus $3379.01. So it's only $50 more per month to own an appreciating asset versus something that loses 20% of its value when it comes right off the lot. So just by taking the equity you've built up and rolling it forward into a new dream home, it's really not costing you much more. So that's something to consider. Everybody's real focused on those rates. Just be wise. If you do the things that no one else will do today, then you'll be able to do what no one else will be able to do tomorrow. Let's look at a different version of this scenario, shall we? Now, in 2014, it's a different person. Obviously, you bought a $400,000 home in 2014. Again, you put down 20%, 4% rate, and you own that truck that you bought in 2015. Your mortgage payment is $3194.40, and your truck is paid off. Same thing, you go and decide to buy a dream car, right? Same dream car, $100,000 Jeep Grand Wagoneer, $90,000 financed at 8%. 5 years. Your car payment, $1,824.88. Your mortgage payment, obviously higher this time around, $3194.40. And your interest deduction is $215. So your total debt on a monthly is $4,804.28 versus, we're now going to look at that same scenario, but in this time, instead of buying a dream car, you bought a dream house. Same scenario, $400,000, 4%, mortgage payment, $3194.40. You keep your truck and sell your home. Again, the $400,000 home that you bought 9 years ago is now worth $800,000, so it's doubled. And you buy your dream home for $1.1 million. Full equity of $545 as a down payment at a 7% rate. Your car payment's nothing. Your mortgage payment is $5110.46. Interest deduction is $650, and your total debt racks up at $4460.46 a month. Compare that to $4804, and look at that. Now it's actually cheaper for you to buy your dream house. So the point is, if you invest in appreciating assets like real estate, your wealth will go gradually in the background. And if you let the market do what it does, you'll look up one day and you'll start to see your dreams coming true. So the reality is, for every $50,000 in car debt at today's rates, you're actually losing $200,000 in purchasing power. I want you to think through this, be wise, play the long game. Again, these are just scenarios that hopefully will help you think through some of these big life decisions. And lastly, I want to look at our local inventory on the North Shore. So months of inventory is the metric we use, and it works like this. If we stopped listing homes for sale today, this is how many months it would take us to sell completely out of homes. So this is the metric we use to determine what kind of market we're in, seller's market or buyer's market. Now, in a balanced market, you'll expect to see between 5 and 7 months of inventory for sale. Right now on the North Shore, it's about 3.5 months of inventory. We're still technically in a seller's market, more buyers than sellers. Although it doesn't feel that way, because back in January of 2022, we were at less than 1 month of inventory. We've been slowly but steadily climbing since then, and now prices have begun to drop. So our prices have been holding steady despite the rates, just because of the strong demand. But now, as demand slows and the cost of things like insurance, inflation, high rates, we're starting to see prices come down ever so slightly. So sellers have to be aggressive with pricing their homes because the market is slowing down. Now, before you think I'm telling you the sky is falling, don't be afraid. I try to live my life by the belief that within every challenge or problem, there lies an opportunity. So during this real estate market shift, what is the gift of the shift for you? Could it be that while the interest rates have temporarily limited home prices, you can lock in a decent price for a great house, which you can likely refinance later when it has appreciated and the rates have come down? Do you really want to go back to the low rates where you had to compete with 10 other people for a great house when it came on the market and maybe pay $20,000 above asking price just to get your offer accepted? Remember that? Nobody loved that. So why not enjoy the luxury of being able to negotiate with sellers again? It's truly all about perspective. It's still the right time to buy a house if your finances are in the right place and it's the right house. So come talk with us. A big part of the reason I started this podcast is because I love helping people figure out how to grow their wealth through real estate. So thank you for joining us today on the Will Frederick podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. See you next time.